You were dumped by a successful husband earning $300,000 a year. Sorry, haha, suing is pointless, she smirked, looking at my face. It was supposed to be my baby shower, but she didn't care at all. But I couldn't just stay silent after being insulted like that. Do you think you can ruin my family and get away with it for free? Be prepared. I plan to demand a substantial amount of compensation from both you and my husband. Just the due date to prepare for a return to my parents' home for the birth. Initially, David, who dislikes being alone, was reluctant, but he agreed, understanding it was all for the child. I'll miss you, Sarah. While I found David's attitude somewhat unreliable, it was also endearing. I vowed to fulfill my role as a pregnant woman for his sake. That's when I returned to my parents' home after a long time. Long time no see, Sarah. At my parents' home, there was my sister, Becky. I was shocked by her sudden appearance. We hadn't seen each other for almost 10 years. Not just in person, I didn't even know if she was alive. The same was true for our parents. 10 years ago, Becky had left home with a jobless man, a former bartender. Back then, Becky was so smitten with him that she spent all her savings, and even dipped into our parents' money, resulting in them disowning her. Then for about 10 years, with no contact, I couldn't even tell her about my marriage or pregnancy. Thus, with no contact, I couldn't even tell her about my marriage or pregnancy. Her sudden appearance at her parents' house gave me an ominous feeling. But we were never close as sisters, and seeing her now, more hardened after 10 years, I felt a sense of disgust. Sarah, are you pregnant? Your belly looks big. Yes, I'm almost in my final month. But importantly, where have you been all this time, sis? It's been 10 years since you left home like you were eloping. You didn't even contact us once. Well, I was disowned by Mom and Dad. They yelled at me never to show my face again. I couldn't come back. That's because you took money from the house, right? I know, and I've reflected on that. I said I would pay back the money, and that's why Mom and Dad allowed me to stay at home again. So, maybe a daughter is always precious to them. What about the man you were with? I broke up with him a long time ago. He was a penniless guy who squandered my savings and even got into debt, then cheated on me with another woman. At the look on my sister's face, as she said this was fiercely intense. It wasn't the face of the sister I knew. She had always been badly behaved, but seeing her after such a long time, she seemed completely run down, enveloped in a negative aura. Intimidated, I couldn't say anything more. Well, it's all in the past. Let's put it all behind us and get along as sisters. I'm going to be living here from now on, so let's get along. However, living back at home, I honestly only felt stress. The main cause was my sister. She'd said we should get along as sisters, but she had said we should get along, but that promise was never kept. She selfishly continued to live without any concern for the family, especially towards me, a pregnant woman. She was inconsiderate, making noise late into the night and rarely getting up in the morning, living parasitically off our parents without any shame. Yet she didn't seem to feel guilty at all. Her attitude was summed up in one point. I'm working, unlike you, Sarah, who's unemployed. that seemed she had a temporary job and stuck to a regular schedule. She also had a promise to pay back the money to our parents, which seemed to give her a sense of contributing to the household financially, which in turn made her confrontational towards me. Being maternity leave? Even if you're pregnant, you're just an unemployed freeloader, she said, eating and sleeping all day, just wandering around. But this is necessary for the baby in my belly. This is the most important time. Yeah, she said. Perhaps the pregnant lady is always right. Sarah, you've always been a cheater. Snorting disdainfully, my sister glared at my big belly. She seemed annoyed that our parents were more concerned about me.
Maybe you should explain to Becky that you're on maternity leave, not unemployed. If she understands you're working too, maybe her attitude will change.
It's okay, Mom, I said. That's like we to People City after tourist. I don't care what my sister thinks of me. Bringing it up will just complicate things. But want to focus on giving birth. I'm worried that she might do something. They understood my mother's concerns, but I didn't want to stress over my sister anymore. Once the baby was due soon, I wanted to be a strong mother at all times. For that, I couldn't afford to be bothered by my sister's antics. One day, a week before my due date, my husband David came to visit me at my parents' house. He seemed uneasy in someone else's home, but was dressed sharply in a suit. I couldn't help but smile inwardly at my husband's attempt to look good. Nice to meet you, I said. I'm Becky, her sister. My sister, dressed up, approached my husband with a flirtatious tone. She usually didn't wear such heavy makeup to work. She had done up her makeup and was wearing a revealing dress, clearly unsettling David. I stepped in immediately. How is this? Don't you have work? I said. David can't stay long. Oh, come on, she said. I finally get to talk to David, she said. He looks so handsome in his suit, she said. Seems like a kind man, a far cry from my ex. Hey, I said. Don't bring up strange topics. And David, you earn a lot, right? You're a lawyer, I believe. I've always admired smart people. Seeing the glittering look she gave, it seemed my husband wasn't entirely displeased. He was noticeably stretching his neck to get a better look at my sister's exposed cleavage. I was so dismayed that I smacked him hard on the butt and sent him straight home. If it was just to see my face, his business was done. Well then, I'm off to work too. As my sister left the house following my husband, I felt a twinge of unease. But I couldn't follow her. More than that, I was feeling utterly exhausted. Later, my mother told me she had personally warned my sister. You shouldn't call your sister unemployed. After that, she accidentally let slip about our household income and David's job. At TNCE, though she tried to be vague, it seemed clear that my sister saw David as a capable man. In hindsight, I should have been more cautious at that moment. It might have prevented the hurt that followed. A week passed, and I finally went into labor. It was an agonizing day and night. But when dawn broke, I was left with an indescribable happiness. Our long-awaited baby was a little small at 5.7 pounds, but to me it shone brighter than any jewel. My only concern was that David didn't make it in time for the birth. We had agreed that he would be there as it was our child. I wanted him to witness the birth, to burn it into his memory. But he arrived at the hospital an hour after the baby was born. When I asked why he was late, he just mumbled, "Sorry, I got held up with work." Really, 5 minutes after him, Becky arrived and something clicked in my mind. Could it be these two? After accomplishing the huge task of giving birth, I was faced with another issue to deal with. Following that, I was like a demon in my efficiency, all while hiding my deep resentment. Once the postpartum period was over, we decided to have a celebration at my parents' home. We invited a large number of relatives, including David's parents. Becky was there too, as if nothing was wrong. She was dressed up extravagantly, sticking close to David and exchanging meaningful glances with him. I didn't miss any of it. I have something to tell everyone. As the celebration was in full swing, I stood up, ranked the attendees, flushed from drinking, turned to look at me. It's a joyous occasion, but I have something important to report. As of today, shock was visible on everyone's faces, except for my parents who had been briefed beforehand and looked solemnly at David. He appeared completely clueless. I continued with more details. Sitting as constituted sex, I'm embarrassed to say, but while I was struggling with pregnancy and childbirth, my husband repeatedly cheated on me. I've obtained evidence from a private investigator. I'll show you photos of him entering a hotel with another woman and them kissing in the street late at night. And the person he cheated with is my own sister Becky. But with her name called out, all eyes turned to Becky. Her close proximity to David was practically an admission of guilt. Instead of being ashamed, Becky started laughing. "Sarah, you're really bold, aren't you? Assuming your own shame in front of the relatives, saying your husband was stolen right after giving birth. It's a shame that will last a lifetime." I wanted you to realize the extent of your betrayal. Betrayal sounds so harsh. I just fell in love with David. There's nothing wrong with a loving act. How can you even say that? You slept with my husband. I'll never forget how both of you visited the hospital room while I was giving birth. Yes, while you were giving birth, David and I were making love in a nearby hotel. Sorry that we were making a baby while you were giving birth. Haha. You're unbelievable. What? I'm just admitting what you wanted to hear. Sarah, you were dumped by a husband who earns $300,000 a year. Becky laughed triumphantly and chugged her beer. The relatives around us were speechless with astonishment. Unfazed by the atmosphere, Becky continued. Honestly, I can't stand that a kid like Sarah gets to be with a high-earning husband. Listen, in contrast, I'm a beautiful and mature woman, so it's only natural that David would be attracted to me. He even said in bed that he wasn't confident about his life with his wife. I don't want to hear about your affair. Is that sour grapes? You're going to have a hard time now, Sarah. But a single mother raising a baby, it's really sad for the child to lose a father because of the mother's selfishness. Yes, be prepared. I intend to demand a substantial amount of compensation from both you and my husband. I won't go easy. I'll make sure you both see hell according to the law. Go ahead. Give me whatever compensation you want. I have a husband who earns $300,000. So $10,000 or $20,000 in compensation won't hurt me at all, right, David? Sure, I will pay you the compensation. Please spare me. You're my only sister. I don't want that liar of a man, and I'm still saddled with debt from my previous boyfriend's loans. I have already submitted the complaint to the court. Just wait, that's all. But with those words, I left the room. After some time, I successfully divorced my husband, David. Of course, he knew how skilled a lawyer I was, especially if it came to court. Burdened with a substantial amount of compensation, David seems to be struggling a lot now. Surely, he was fired from the law firm. I hope he reflects and lives more honorably from now on. Touch me. As for my sister Becky, she too was kicked out of the house and is now wandering without a place to stay. She had already split up with David. I knew most of this because she kept calling my smartphone. Feeling sorry for her, I referred her to a law firm. Although I doubted she could afford the legal fees. I have returned to work and am handling my responsibilities as before. When I get home, my beloved daughter awaits me. I and my parents help out, so my life is going smoothly. I'm planning a high-end restaurant for my daughter's birthday with my parents, using the compensation from David and Becky. I'm savoring every moment of my daughter's growth.